Yeah. Hey everybody. Well, it's 6 o'clock. We're up to 23. We got 23 people in the chat room so far. So it's 6 o'clock. We've got I think 6 different wines that Diego is going to go through. So Salvador, if you want to get us started, and I'll be monitoring the chat room, and if as other people start joining, we'll make sure to get them in as soon as possible. But again, just for the sake of time, we should probably get going. So, oh, by the way, first of all, yeah, Salvador, please go ahead. And so Salvador is going to be leading this, and Diego, of course, is going to be our sommelier.
Yeah, well, thanks, Nick, and bienvenidos, and welcome to the 4th annual Saltillo Day in Austin Festival. This is a virtual wine tasting event representing wines from Casa Madero, which is the oldest winery in the Americas. And it's located in Parras de la Fuente, Coahuila, Mexico. My name is Salvador Castañeda, and I'm moderating the event. Nick Barreiro, most of you I'm sure already know, he's from Clay Imports. They source the world's best handmade tile from right here in Austin, Texas. And he's also the president of Austin Saltillo Sister Cities International. And I think he's gonna give us a little bit of an intro or a background on Austin Saltillo Sister Cities and what we've been up to all day today and after this event. This whole day is Saltillo Day in Austin, so we're really proud to be celebrating the friendship. Nick?
Great. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Hi, my name is Nick. As Salvador said, I'm the president of an organization based out of Austin, Texas. It's called Austin Saltillo Sister Cities. And Austin Saltillo Sister Cities is part of a larger group called Sister Cities International. We focus primarily on building international relations between cities within the United States and other parts of the world. So Austin Saltillo obviously focuses on the relationship between Austin, Texas and Saltillo, Coahuila. And as Salvador was saying, today is a really cool day for a number of reasons. So for those of you who are not familiar with your Mexican geography, on the screen right now is a map of northern Mexico. And we've actually just Google searched Casa Madero, which is the winery that, the wines that we're going to be trying today are from Casa Madero. Casa Madero and is approximately a 2-hour drive west of Saltillo, Coahuila. And Saltillo, Coahuila is just about 300 miles south of the Texas-Mexican border. So Austin Saltillo Sister Cities focuses very much on developing relationships and programs between Austin and not only Saltillo, but various regions throughout northern Mexico. This is actually the first time that Austin Saltillo Sister Cities is working with the Casa Madero winery. And we're really excited about this new relationship. And we actually hope that once travel becomes a little safer, we'll be able to coordinate several group trips, taking Austin people to the Casa Madero winery in Parras, in the city of Parras. Anyway, back to the event that we're having right now. This event is part of Saltillo Festival. So Saltillo Festival, for those of you who have not seen the website yet, AustinSaltillo.com. AustinSaltillo.com has the lineup of all the events that are happening today. I know that most people have been occupied all day long. This is a weekday, and our events started today at noon. So if you go to the website, most of the events were live streamed, but everything that was live streamed, we've recorded, and it's going to stay on the website indefinitely. So you can go to Austin Saltillo anytime and see all the cool events that happened earlier today. We had live music, cooking classes, and of course the wine tasting. But all this is leading up to another big event. Tonight is going to be 𝗷𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. 𝗷𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is, of course, the Mexican Independence Day celebration. Anyway, back to the wine event right now. So Salvador, please, I think you're going to introduce our sommelier.
Yes, first though, I want to remind everybody to please, during the tasting, questions are encouraged. However, please keep your microphone on mute. It's the button on the lower left-hand corner. When you do want to raise your hand and ask a question, raise your hand, but also raise your hand on the Zoom app, and you will be recognized. You can ask your questions, unmute your microphone. After you ask your question, then mute your microphone again, please. Diego Hernandez is a senior sommelier for Casa Madero, again, the America's oldest winery. Diego is a certified sommelier by the Court of Master Sommeliers and the Mexican Sommelier Association. He's been a wine counselor for one of Mexico's leading newspapers. He's had his own radio show, and he's been involved in the wine industry for over 20 years. So please allow me to introduce to you Diego Hernandez, sommelier for Casa Madero.
Diego, you're muted.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Salvador, for this introduction. It's my great pleasure to be here with you, and I'm really excited about it because the Mexican wine consumption has grown, and the consumption of wine in Mexico has grown as well, but not as big as the wine consumption of Mexican wine, not only in Mexico, but in the world. And one of the first reasons we focused on the Mexican market was because other markets recognize the quality of our wines, and Mexico didn't know about it. So we had to go from the inside out to restructure our marketing and our market guidelines of wine distribution, and we restarted from Mexico, and I think we did it all right. So now it's growing outside Mexico again. So I would like to first, if you agree with it, to start with the history, not only from the winery, but from the wine in Mexico that is actually 400 years old. It's actually almost 500 years old. And we never stop talking about this and explaining to many wine cultures around the world. And all of the time they get so impressed about the time and the quality of the wines that we have been developing, but for the history as well, not just the wine itself. So it's for me a great pleasure to be on the first weeks of this year. I got the opportunity to be in New Mexico giving a wine tasting, and I got amazed about the culture of wine that you already knew about wine, Mexican wine. We never knew how much the US, it's willing and desired to enjoy our wines. And I would like to also introduce, I will maybe ask for some help in some point with 𝗩𝗲𝗄𝗏 that is here as well. She is in charge of all of the export operations of our winery, and she has been having a lot of job during the years. I think she now needs a higher and larger team to be able to be physically with you as well and be able to track where are the wines that we produce and know you. And this is a great opportunity because it's one of the first encounters we are having with Austin itself, which is a sister city to Saltillo. And that's the best thing that a winery can have, to know by face and name and last name, and also the wines our friends like. Not only, I wouldn't say customers, I would say our friends like. So I'm really pleased to be here, and I hope we can meet physically soon. Well, let me begin with the story of the Mexican wine. And talking about Mexican wine, obviously we gotta talk about Casa Madero. But how old is the wine in Mexico? Well, the wine in Mexico, I wouldn't say Mexican wine, I would say wine in Mexico, goes back to 1520s. From 1520s, Spanish conquerors discovered regions in Mexico around Puebla, the state of Puebla, and they first started producing wine. Obviously, they brought vines from Spain or Europe, different parts of Europe, and they started planting these vines. But as they were conquering and exploring different areas of Mexico, they discovered and found it in some regions of the north of this land, which they named it the New Spain, that they founded native vines. And these native vines, they named it the mission vine. So this vine was settled to grow not only more, but better wine regions in the area, because they weren't able to find wine here, so they had to produce it. So they teach Mexico, they teach the locals how to make wine, and they planted the vines. Obviously, the church was always involved into this process, because the church itself uses wine into his Catholic ritual. So in 1568, when was the exploration of the area, Fray Pedro de Esparineda and Francisco Cano explored the area of the Patos, or Valle de Patos, which in English means the Duck Valley, which now is named Valle de Parras, and later became, well, later of Valle de Patos became the Pirineo Valley. Right now, it's named as the Parras Valley. And they named this region the Parras Valley because they noticed that from all over Mexico that they were exploring, all the areas of Mexico that they were planting vines, this was the area that the best vines growth and the better way they grow. So instead of taking all of the gold and the silver that actually they didn't find in this place, they didn't took anything from it. Actually, they decided to settle in this valley. They planted more vines. So they planted more vines because obviously they wanted to live here. And it's a little interesting. Well, it's really interesting how they find it a great place to live, even though it's on the middle of the desert. So it's on the desert, and you can see nothing but yuccas and semi-desertic region and soil around this area. And you couldn't believe it. You wouldn't imagine how they decided to produce wine in this region. What they found and what they couldn't explain for many years is how the vine could have growth in these areas when it is a semi-desertic region. So there's no water. Where does the vines are being sourced, and from where are the vines being have its nutrients? So they discovered that we are actually an oasis. So we name our land as well an oasis in the middle of the desert, because you can actually find a lot of water behind the soil. It's hard to bring it to the surface, but we have a lot of water. So this is a pretty unique terroir, because you have a semi-desertic region, you have a strong soil, and you have a lot of water. So that will be a paradise for the vine, because the vine, it's a vine that works better when it's stressed. If you put it in a comfort or in a comfy zone, the vine will not produce high quality grapes. So if you put it on a soil, and I'm really happy looking at your faces, you know, like you're comparing it to some other thing. So yeah, when you put it on a comfy area, the vine doesn't produce that great grapes. So you need to stress it a little bit in order to produce high quality. So this was the perfect region, because you can stress it, but also you can give to the vine great nutrients. So that is the reason our terroir is pretty unique. So I'm gonna keep on the story about our winery, and that was in 1568. I'm gonna move forward to 1597, when it's our year of foundation. Our year of foundation is 1597. So that means we are a 423-year-old winery. Today, we are celebrating 210 Mexico's Independence Day. So we, as a country, we are not as old as Casa Madero Winery. The United States as well is as named as that, is not as obviously the land it was, but as a as a unique company or wine producing or institution is really, really old. And you can compare it as one of the 20th oldest wineries in the world. Not many companies from any other sector are more or are older that are 200 years old, and we are a 423-year-old winery. And the most important thing of this as well is that we haven't stopped not only operating, but we haven't stopped producing wine from there. If you are into wine history, you will say, how's that even possible? If in 1629, there was a prohibition to vine growing and winemaking in all of the Americas, how was Casa Madero able to produce? Well, I'm gonna tell you that a little bit later. So in 1597, the King Felipe II authorized Diego Hernandez de Velasco to provide Lorenzo Garcia the authorization of winemaking or vine growing and then winemaking in this region. So he had a royal authorization from the King Felipe II to produce wine and make wine. So he brought this book that he had with him, and you can see, if you think, where is this book located, or how this book looked like, where you can see our labels. And I really love explaining this. If you have our bottles of wine, can you please pick any of them? And you will see on our bottle, you will see a manuscript. Well, this manuscript that you're watching you're seeing on the label, it's an extract from every single label of Casa Madero has an extract of this book of foundation that is named La Merced, or is a book of authorization, is the translation. From different parts of this book, handwritten by the King Felipe II back in 1597. So in every label of Casa Madero, we have a piece of history, not just from the winery, but from the settlement of a country itself, because this book contained a lot of information. This handwritten contained information of how the country was distributed in that time in terms of land, in terms of territory. So this book is also an importance of Mexico, not from our winery itself. And that was our very first day of operation. And that day was the 19th of August of 1597. So we are a 423-year-old winery that hasn't stopped producing wine since then. Well, what happened after when in 1629, there was a prohibition about winemaking and vine growing? How could Casa Madero survive this complicated situation? Well, we made an arrangement with the crown, the Spanish crown, to keep on producing wine for the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church needs wine into the Mass. So the Mass needs wine obviously for the Mass. So we made this arrangement. Obviously, we had to lower our production in order to just produce wine for the Catholic Church. But by that, we were able to keep on growing vines and then producing wine. We are on a very particular situation right now globally. So when this situation first started, one of many questions in different wine tastings or itself on the radio show was, what's going to happen with wine around the world? Does wine will stop? Wine will suffer? Well, I can for sure tell no. Wine has been there for hundreds and thousands of years and has passed for many crises, medical crisis, economic crisis, a lot of different cultural crises, wars, and wine has been there for many years. And our winery has been there for many years as well. So I'm pretty sure we are all going to pass this situation. And wine has never been that much clear for me that actually wine, it's all of the time. It doesn't matter the situation. So because the wine culture has growth in this timing, in this quarantine time that we are now having wine tasting virtually. A few years ago, I wouldn't imagine being us all together in different cities, having a wine tasting from that distance by the phone or by the computer. I wouldn't imagine it, but now we're doing it and I'm really happy. And the reason of this is not the brand, is not me, is wine itself. So I'm really happy about that. So moving forward into the story about our winery, I will have to also explain a lot of things about our state. And I'm gonna move a little my virtual background, so you can see a little bit the architecture as well. I'm gonna move from it a little, so you can see it's a beautiful state. It keeps its same structure from 1597, so you can see better. There you go. I hope you can visit us soon. So this architecture is pretty unique because it's based on a combination of different architectural philosophies, not just the Spanish philosophy. So you can see a lot of the architecture from the region. A lot of states around Casa Madero are similar to our state. And the reason of it is because they were built on the same years, or they were designed by the same years. So these, the base of the state is started on 1597, but not specifically has been the same. It has actually grown. Another thing interesting, you will see our state in a white color. So in our labels, that's the reason they are white, because you can see and you can even feel the same texture from the walls of the state on the texture of the label. So that's what we wanted to print in our labels, a part of the history with the handwritten part of it, and then the colors of the state on the texture of the labels. And Carrie just said that is true. Yeah, that's what we based to design our labels. And I'm really proud of it because it really explains where do we come from and what the winery is all about. And we are all about wine culture, winemaking, antique winemaking, but also having better and learning better practices and having the best technology at the moment. And that's what I want to move forward. Obviously, when we were founded, we were producing wine in the old way. We actually started producing wine, as you can imagine, pressing the grapes with our barefoot. Now we don't do it, obviously, but we actually started making wine with this processing. And then we had a lot of, we had different mechanical presses. And now we have the cutting edge technology for wine making, not just in selection, but also in extraction and fermentation tanks. Casa Madero has been a winery that every single century, I wouldn't say year, every year, but you noticed on every century, has been growing with the technology to produce better wines. So I'm pretty sure we didn't produce as good wines as we do right now. And I'm pretty sure we don't make as good wines right now as we will make in 20 or 30 years. And the reason is we always commit to quality. And the quality starts on the vineyard. But I'm going to start talking in a few minutes. I will stop a little to present when do we started naming ourselves Casa Madero, because the Book of Foundation declared that the actual name of the winery on the beginning was Bodegas y Viñedos de San Lorenzo, which that means vineyards and winery of San Lorenzo. And that was because of the Book of Foundation and the authorization from the King Felipe II. But then the name of Casa Madero was acquired on 1896 when Evaristo Madero, which is the great father, the great father from Francisco Madero, that I'm pretty sure you'll know. He's the patriarch of the Madero family. He acquired the winery and the state in Paris. He actually acquired in Paris, not in Mexico, because it wasn't able to be acquired in Mexico. He acquired it and he changed the name from Hacienda de San Lorenzo to Casa Madero. But as a cultural thing, our state is still named Hacienda de San Lorenzo. And now we name it Hacienda de San Lorenzo, home of Casa Madero. But the company's name is Casa Madero because Evaristo Madero was who wanted to rename it for his family. And Evaristo Madero is the great father from Francisco y Madero, which was later president of Mexico. And that's why it's a really well-known last name in our country. So he was the patriarch of the family, and he renamed from Hacienda de San Lorenzo to Casa Madero Winery. I don't know if you have some questions right now that you would like to go through, so we don't accumulate that much for the end. The church, 𝗩𝗶𝗶𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. Yes, the church is beautiful. We actually have a church in the state. We are 380 hectares. I will transfer to acres. I don't know how many acres we have in acres, but we have 380 hectares of property, including vines in the state. We have a church. We have obviously the winemaking facility, and we have also hospitality facilities as well. We have a great kitchen. We have 27 rooms. I really hope we can receive you soon. We just received the message, Alejandra and I, that we are now open for tourism as well. So that's awesome. Eloisa Acha had a great question. When can we start drinking? We should now. We should now go, yes, we should now start drinking. So I'm aware we selected 5 wines. Some of you don't have them all. Some of you may have them all. Which will be my recommendation? Well, for those who has the rosé, I will start you to start with the rosé. Let me go a little faster so I can see the wines as well. So Alejandra will give me the wine list. I have it here. So the wine list is, we will start with Casa Madero Rosé, and then we're gonna move, no, I'm sorry. We're gonna move from Casa Madero Chardonnay. If you have the Chardonnay, we'll suggest you to open it right now or start drinking it if you already have it open. And then the Rosé. If you don't got these both, don't worry, you can move straight to Casa Madero 3B. That will be the suggested order. If you don't have these 3, you can go through the Shiraz Casa Madero. I'm gonna pour Shiraz for me. Okay, so do you have another question? Please fill your glasses. Let's start enjoying as we talk. I'm sorry that I forgot. Cheers to everyone. Okay, so if there are not any other questions, any further questions, I'm gonna move with the following part that is absolutely important, which is our land. Thank you, Salvador, for the questions. Do we still produce with native vines? We actually haven't produced from these wines because the wine that produces the native vine is not as high quality as we want. So we don't use it. We actually use it for decoration. We do keep it. We have it on the stake, but we just use it as decoration because the grapes that produces is not as high quality as we would like to. So that's why we only use different varieties. And we brought them from different regions. We brought it from France. We brought from Australia as well. Some other from the US, but not from these native, no. I can tell you what we do with the grapes that they produce. Well, in our state, they produce jam with them. It's an awesome jam. So tasty, so sweet, but we don't produce wine with that. So in here, in the back of me, I transfer myself to the vineyard, and you can see the property on the way back. So we have a vineyard, a really big vineyard, and we have different ages of vines. Our younger vines have 3 to 5 years, and our oldest vines are 35 to 40-year-old vines. So how can we manage to have different categories of wines? Because we also focus on that. We don't only focus on the barrel and on the winemaking process. We actually first focus our efforts and our resources to have better vines and a better vineyard, a more healthy vineyard. And we have been learning through the years. Myself, I have been related to Casa Madero for about 20 years, since I was really young, because my father also works in the company. So I was able to see, or I'm able to see, how the evolution of vineyard learning we have acquired, because the information that we have been applying to the vineyard has changed. We used to have really old vines for every single wine, and we learned that we must have different ages of the vine in order to have different categories of wine. We always control and measure the quality of the grapes that we produce, but we need also younger vines for younger wines. So that we didn't know it at the beginning, because we had already older vines, and we thought that that was a good thing or a great thing. But as we learned that we needed younger vines as well. So in one point, Jose Milmo acquired the direction of the winery, and that was in 1970. At that moment, the winery changed and had a way different purpose than it was before, which was a company producing brandy and aguardiente, grape aguardiente, which is a high liquor, high volume alcohol liquor. And he focused on producing high quality wine. So he hired experts from France, Australia, and Spain to be here in Mexico, in Parras Valley, and consult for not just one occasion, but through the years. And basically the result, or the final examination from these consultants, that we needed to replant basically all of our vineyard. So they said, if you actually want to produce really high quality wines, what you should do is actually replant all of your vineyard. Because right now your vineyard, it's directed to produce spirits, is directed to produce great reserve wines, and is not conducted well. And the company itself asked itself, how is not conducted well? Well, the sunrise is also important for the vine growing and the grape maturity. So you need to direct how do you want the vineyard to be set, and is wrongly set. So we had to replant all of the vineyard and start again, even though we had old vines, and we had to start over from the beginning. Obviously, it was a process. It wasn't a decision of one day. It was an entire process of replanting the vineyard. And right now, I can tell you that we already have vines that are 35 to 40-year-old or even more years because of that decision. And right now, we are able to produce really, really high quality wines, not only from the Great Reserve, also from the youth line, which is the Rosé or the Chardonnay, because of that decision. Are Casa Madero wines really available in restaurants in areas like Cancun? Yes. Yes, we are. I'm going to watch some questions here. Did the winery ever... Well, those are great questions. And I think I'm gonna award them right now. So yes, Casa Madero was actually in the middle of, I wouldn't say the Mexican War, but we were in the middle of the revolution and the independence as well. Imagine, the last name was even involved into the winery. So the property itself was also built and reinforced to be able to live on the same property. So for sometimes people that were living into the winery, into the state, they weren't able to go out. So that's the reason the state has also gardens on the inside, and the walls are very thick. They're about 1.5 meter thick, the walls of the state. So we were, or not we, they were able to protect themselves from invasions. And I mean, it was the independence and revolution going right there. And it was a zone of it. The last name was involved specifically into the independence. So yes. Another question was about the prohibition of production. I already said about it. And yes, also the wines are available in regions of Mexico as Cancun. All of the beach, in all the beaches in Mexico are, you are able to find our wines. From Los Cabos to Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Tulum, Puerto Vallarta, Acapulco, obviously as well, Oaxaca, Huatulco. Yes, you're able to find our wines. And actually, that was the reason the international wine consumer was willing and desired to enjoy Mexican wine in Mexico. And it was funny that the reason we started to reinvest into the Mexican market was because of that, because the international market wanted to come to Mexico, specifically going to the beach, Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, etc., to enjoy Mexican wines, and they weren't able to, because back in the days we used to export 95% of our production instead of around 5% of our production that we are exporting right now. So that's the reason we changed it and we moved into the Mexican market. But I moved like 30 years about from the moment that I was talking about. So in 1970, I'm gonna go back a little bit to 1970, when 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗏 acquired the executive direction of Casa Madero, and he pioneered in Mexico for the vision of producing the best Mexican wine. But he did it from the inside out. He started replanting the vines. So we replanted all of the land that you can see right now. We replanted. So we replanted, and we had great consultants into this process, and we still have them. And now we were able to launch another wine, which has been our more successful wine in terms of selling and timing. But all of our wines are based on this high quality commitment to the land. So if you ask me, where does Casa Madero invest the most? I will definitely say in land, in vineyard, and not land growing. I would say land caring. We really care about our vineyards, and we really care about the grape production. And that's the reason the wines are really awarded as well. It's not a coincidence. Well, I'm gonna move forward into the 1989, when we first started going to wine competitions. But I'm gonna make a little stop. So I'm gonna ask you to move. If you haven't already tasting the Rosé and the Chardonnay, you can move to the Shiraz or the 3B. If you have already enjoyed the 3B and the Shiraz, you can now move forward to the Great Reserve. No, we have the Casa Madero Cabernet Sauvignon. And we're gonna leave the Great Reserve Shiraz for the last part of it. So, talking about the wines. I'm gonna explain you about the wines. Great, I can see some 3B in all your screens. Can please everyone show me your bottles, the bottles that you have? If you have it on your hand, don't worry if you don't. Maybe you already have your glasses. Oh, I can see a family right there. Costellos are reunited over there. Great, I can see Catherine, your 3B, Amalia, hello. Nicolas, Lulu Flores, I can see your both wines. Great, Veronica Gonzalez as well. Oh, I can see 4 bottles with Iguana Cholegua, great. Gloria, great. Okay, so, I'm sorry, I looked at my phone. I'm gonna explain you because I haven't explained the wines. Chardonnay. Casa Madero Chardonnay is 100% Chardonnay. It's made from 20 to 25-year-old Chardonnay. It's not as good as you will think. It's actually an old vine. And that's the reason it's not sweet. You will find this wine not a sweet wine or not a fruity wine. You will probably find it a little dry. And the definition of the wine is actually semi-dry wine. So yes, you can compare it with the palate or the style of a French wine instead of an Italian, for example, or a German wine. We're more into the French style of youth wine, white wine. So yes, we have a semi-dry Chardonnay. And this wine has no past on the barrel. It's a youth wine. We press it, we ferment it, we stabilize this wine, and then we bottle it. And I wanted to first start, and I remember to talk about the Chardonnay because that is our most awarded wine. And I'm gonna ask a little help from Alejandra Aspeitia, which is right here. Alejandra, please correct me if I am wrong, but Chardonnay has about 150 medals around the world, right?
Yes, that is correct. It's our most awarded wine.
Imagine that. This wine, the 100% Chardonnay from Casa Madero, is the most awarded wine in Mexico, in the world. This wine itself has more medals than any other winery in the country. The wine itself. So this is a really awarded wine. But the best awarded or the most famous for its award is not actually the Chardonnay. The most famous is the Shiraz, the Great Reserve Shiraz or the Reserve Shiraz. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit later why is that. Next, I'm gonna move forward to the Rosé. And it's a shame I have it right here, but it's not yet cold, so I don't wanna open it. It's a little hot, so I want it to be chill to celebrate Independence Day in a few minutes. So this rosé is made out of Shiraz. It's 100% Shiraz rosé. And that is also a really unique rosé because we wanted to focus again, not in the sweet type of wine, because sweet types of wines are not that able to be enjoyed with food. And something that is really important in Mexico is our gastronomy, the culinary part of our country. So we wanted to produce a wine that fits from fish tacos, shrimp tacos, to al pastor tacos, pozole as well. All of the plates that we enjoy, and now my mouth has mouth watered thinking about it. So all of these Mexican dishes that you maybe love, we wanted this wine to be able to be enjoyed with those dishes. So we seek for a wine that was able to go along with the most characteristic thing in the Mexican kitchen, which is chile. So we didn't need a sweet wine because the chile or the spiciness of the chile was going to be intensified or crushed. You wouldn't enjoy it. So that's why we wanted to define our rosé as a semi-dry rosé as well. And this harvest, you will probably have the 2019 harvest of rosé or the 2018. Well, this wine is that. It's a semi-dry rosé. It's made or thing to be drink in the few years. It's not a wine to be kept on our cellar. It's a wine to be enjoyed right now. Rosés are things that produced to be enjoyed on a short period of time. So this is the most characteristic thing about rosé. You can enjoy it through the year. It's a really enjoyable wine. After a day of work, you can pour yourself a glass and then you can refresh yourself on a really great way. For those of you that already had the rosé, did you like it? Great. I'm watching some faces, some happy faces. Great. Or the south of France. Yes, Provence. This wine has a little style of the Provence wines. Yes, absolutely. And that has a reason. And I will tell you the reason of it. Our head winemaker, which is named Paco, Francisco Rodriguez, he started winemaking, his master's in winemaking in the south of Provence, in the south of France, nearby Provence. So I'm pretty sure he loved all of the rosés he tried, and he was inspired to produce himself his own Provence style rosé. So he managed to do it, and I really, really like it. To be honest, it's one of my favorites. It's one of the wines that I enjoy the most all of the year. Well, let's move forward to the 3B. Well, the 3B, that wine doesn't go to competitions. The 3B doesn't go to competition. We don't send it. And the reason I will say we don't send it, we know it's gonna win. We know it's gonna, because we take care of the quality of the wines, but it has the best medal a wine can have. And what is the best medal a wine can have? The consumers or the client's preference. Is the most seeked wine or the most purchased wine in Mexico. And it's really, and I'm really proud and really happy to see in weddings, in events, on special occasions, you know, on engagement parties, on gender reveal bottles, all of those occasions, you can find the 3B. Obviously, in restaurants and reunions, on barbecues in houses, you can find the 3B. And why 3B is so popular or so preferred? Well, there is a reason, and a specific reason. The 3B is a combination of 3 varietals. And the reason the rosé has a V on the label is because it's made of just one variety. And that variety is Shiraz. Well, there is 2B. The 2V is made out of 2 varieties, which is a white wine. It's Chenin Blanc and Chardonnay and Chenin Blanc. And then we have the 3B, which is a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Tempranillo. But a really important thing to say, I will repeat it, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Tempranillo. A really important thing to say about this 3B is that it's actually not a jute wine. It's a reserve line wine. So it's been on the barrel, on a second use barrel. The first use barrel are great reserve. So it's aged on barrels for 1 year, French and American oak. It's a wine to be kept in the bottle for a few years. You can actually keep the bottle for a few years, and I love to say it actually pays off the years. So if you open it in a few years later, you will enjoy a more elegant wine, and even stronger tannins with more structured wine. But the challenge is to keep the 3B on the cellar. The 3B is a wine that you actually want to open it, and you open it and you don't let it on the cellar, because you see it on the cellar and you take it and you want to open it, and you don't have the patience to age the 3B. But you can actually age a 3B, and it goes great, actually. A few years on the bottle and the wine gets awesome. I mean, it's perfect right now. But during the years, the wine gets better and better. But we don't want to wait, and we open it and we just keep on purchasing the new one, the new harvest and the new harvest. And one thing that is really important, and I really, really thank of our team in viticulture and enology section of the company, is that in restaurants, myself, I'm on a sales area. I mean, I'm the sommelier, but I'm on a sales area. So all the time, I'm talking to customers, and not only the final customers, but restaurants as well. And the best or my favorite part to hear is that they love to taste our wine and to have it on their restaurants and their homes, because we are consistent. And the 3B is a really consistent wine. So if you love it, you will still love it through the years. We're not gonna have ups and downs. We're gonna always commit to high quality, but on the same level. we are always going to offer same structure, same balance in order for you to have the confidence to keep on consuming our 3B. So for many of you, the 3B is your favorite, right? So yeah, and my personal, oh, you just finished that bottle, great. So, and my favorite part of the 3B, I just said it, is a wine that you can share. It's a wine that you can put on a table with people that are wine connoisseurs, or you can put it on a table with your friends and family or your co-workers that are not connoisseurs, and they will enjoy it as well. So that's the best part of it. Connoisseurs will enjoy it, and not connoisseurs will enjoy it as well. So that's the best part of the 3B. It's a well-balanced, it's a dynamic wine for pairings as well. My best recommendation of pairing for this wine are fajitas, some lighted mac and cheese, arrachera tacos, obviously, some queso fundido, burgers as well, pizza, classic pizza. I wouldn't say Italian, I would say more American style pizza. Meatballs are also a great option. Carbonara pasta. It's a carne asada norteña, obviously, as well. Yes, I'm making myself hungry. Don't worry, Christina. I'm making myself hungry as well. I'm mouth-watering right now. And to be honest, I've even thought what I'm gonna eat on this Independence Day. I have wines, but I don't have food, so I didn't decide about that. So yeah, that's the best part of the 3B. That is actually a very dynamic wine, and it's really enjoyable. My friends always tell me that this is my sales strategy, but it's not, and I will tell it. I always recommend from our wines to buy not just one bottle, but to buy a case. And they say, yeah, you just tell that because you want to sell more. I was like, no, it really works. If you have yourself a bottle of a wine and you open one bottle each year, you will enjoy the processing of aging of the wine. But then they say, no, I'm not able to keep the case and the bottles. I will open the case instead of one bottle, and that case is gonna finish on 1 month or two. And yeah, that happens with 2B, to be honest. Guacamole as well goes along with the 3B, absolutely. Chardonnay also tastes great with guacamole. If you haven't tasted, I really recommend you to one day make, from scratch, guacamole from scratch, and then the Chardonnay. You can even use sweet potato chips instead of regular chips. That would be an amazing experience with the Chardonnay. Okay, so I'm talking a lot. I would like to see if you have, yes, 10 3B and then 6 Chardonnays. Great. Mixed nuts. Well, yeah. Also
Diego, this
nuts.
is my case.
You have a case. Nice.
Got
look
it.
at that. Oh, look at that. That is a beautiful case.
It's wooden. Yeah.
When did you got it?
I went to Saltillo to Parras 12 years ago. So I've had it for a long time.
I actually have one of those cases. That's why I asked you when did you got it. I only have one. I
really like this.
You can fit 6 bottles on that, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a really beautiful wooden box.
Very, yeah, useful.
It's very steady. It's very steady as well.
Yeah.
Great.
And open. Yeah, here we go.
Do you have any more questions? Let me see the chat. So maybe. How many years? Cesar Martinez is asking. How many years is optimal for 3B? Okay, great question. My recommendation for 3B is up to 7 years, not more than 7 years. From now to 7 years. So you can keep it on the bottle, and each year will be better and better, up to 7 years. Not more than that. Even 5, probably, but really something really important to consider is the aging process. So the bottles should always be on this position, so you can have it on your cellar, right? So always always on the cellar position, so the cork is humid and the wine doesn't breathe that much, so it's able to age well. Temperature is also another important factor. We tend sometimes to keep the wines into the kitchen, and the kitchen, to be honest, is not the best place to storage our wines. The best place is the most refreshed area of our home. Sometimes that might be your pantry. Sometimes that might be maybe your basement, or sometimes might be your office. I don't know, somewhere in your house that is the most refreshed area. You don't actually have to have it on a controlled temperature cellar. You can just have it on these places on a refreshed area, and that would be enough. Okay, do you have more questions? Okay, let's move into the next wine. We are now going to move, and that's the wine that I'm pouring myself right now, to the Shiraz. Let me pour it. The Shiraz variety was first introduced into the Parras Valley back in 1991. So that's almost 30 years ago, 29 years ago. And 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Australia. He was visiting the Adelaide Valley, and he seated himself and he looked around and he said, hey, well, I wasn't there. That's why he told us. And he said, hey, I feel like I'm in the Parras Valley because I can see the mountains, I can see the vegetation, and I can even see the same animals. And yes, we actually have some fauna, some animals that are similar to that region of Australia and all of the parts of Australia, obviously. And the Shiraz grape, the Shiraz variety, is really adequate to Australia. They produce great quality and quantity of Shirazes. So he brought it and he started to experiment with the variety and turned out to be, let me pour some wine. And he found it that it was the best adequate grape variety for our valley because it needs semi-desertic conditions. It needs water, but it needs it not in a soil surface, not in the surface. It actually needs it underground. So that characteristics of land is the type of land that we actually have. So Shiraz found a paradise in the Parras Valley and started to grow well. And by 1999, it won its first medal, if I am not wrong. Alejandra will correct me if I'm if I'm wrong. I don't know if it was 1999 or 2001 when our first Shiraz won a gold medal. Yes, 2001. On 2001, our Great Reserve Shiraz was first introduced, and then on 2003, we won the first medal through this wine. And then we haven't stopped receiving recognitions and gold medals and silver medals and bronze medals and recognition of best wine on the competition and the preference of the customers as well. And it's been a wine that transformed itself from being an experimental wine, experimental variety in the Parras Valley to becoming the most iconic wine into the Parras Valley, and then becoming one of the most iconic wines in Mexico. So when I travel abroad, not in 2020, when I go somewhere else to visit, or when someone comes and I want to give them a wine that represents our land, that represents the Parras Valley in Mexico, I give them Shiraz. because Shiraz is a great variety that has been adapted to the valley, and you can actually see the potential of our land in terms of winemaking specifically. So a good bottle of tequila and our Shiraz is the best ambassadors of the Mexico beverages, talking about wine and tequila in the world. So yes, Shiraz, it really explains of how our land has been developing and where are we heading. It's a really well awarded wine. This one, the reserve line, which I have it right here, I don't know if you're able to see it right there. This, the Shiraz that I'm pretty sure you all have it, is my personal favorite. And I found, and I have the Great Reserve Shiraz as well, but my personal favorite is actually the Reserve. Why? Because I'm always sharing wine. I'm always bringing wines into the reunions. Well, I was bringing wines into the reunions. And yeah, it's a very unique wine. It has a style, but it's also not complicated wine. It's refined, but it's not a cocky wine. You know, it's a really smooth to go. It's a really relaxed wine, but it's a great quality option. It also has been aged on the barrel for 12 months. It's a 1 year. It's into the reserve category of wines and can be aged as well for up to 7 years on the bottle. Myself, I have kept it for 7 to 9 years and goes great. It really evolutes awesome. It is great with dark chocolate, Lulu Flores. Absolutely, absolutely. Actually, one of my favorite pairings with red wine is with dark chocolate. And this Shiraz is the best pairing for dark chocolate. And this specific wine, the Reserve Shiraz, goes great with 55 to 65% cacao chocolate. And the next one, the Great Reserve Shiraz, goes great to 70 and above cacao dark chocolate. I also love chocolate, so I'm really into the chocolate as well. So yes, goes great with chocolate, and just a bar of chocolate. You don't need to have the dessert. You can have just the bar and the wine, and there you go. You have a pairing experience right there. Okay, so shall we move? We have another wine. We have, I think we're gonna have to, we are going to move to the Great Reserve Shiraz, right? Well, can you hear me? Yes, okay. We are now going to move to the Great Reserve Shiraz. Hey, Unión de Productores just joined, celebrating all the Mexican stripes right there. Welcome. Welcome back, actually. You were here already. So, Shiraz Great Reserve. Wow. Shiraz, or the Great Reserve line in Casa Madero, it's our most prestigious category of wine. We only use our oldest and best vines to produce our Great Reserves. And how do we manage to know which one are the best vines, not only the best wines? Well, we have able to acquire knowledge and technology to identify which part of the vineyard has grown better. So we select these lots of vines, and we give them an extra care, because all of them are well cared. And we seek the evolution. We look very closely. And then from these grapes that are produced into this area, we select the best grapes. And then we produce the wine, put it into barrels, and then we select those barrels. And then that's how we produce the Great Reserve. And one commitment that has been a rule, a gold rule in Casa Madero, is that for some reason, for some reason, 1 year, one vintage is not as good to be on the category level that we want. For example, if a Shiraz is not the high quality Shiraz that we want for the Great Reserve line, we're not going to put it into the Great Reserve. Maybe we are able to put it into the Reserve line. But if it's not completing or acquiring the quality or the level, we're going to lower it. And that thing has only happened once. Fortunately, we have been always take care, and the nature has been willing to give us that opportunity to always be consistent on the years, and we keep that line. So that's our golden rule. If for some reason we don't reach the level of quality for some category of wine, we will lower it. But fortunately, as I said, we have always, pretty much always acquired that level. So when you find the Great Reserve labeled on a wine of us, you will find our best of the best vines and grapes and wines and barrels. And we only use new oak barrels on this type of Great Reserve wines. And we use the second use barrels for the Reserve line. So the Great Reserve line only uses new American and French oak, and the Reserve line uses second use barrel from American and French oak. But that second or that first use of the second use for the Reserve are always our Great Reserves. So we never use barrels that are from another wineries or different products. We only use internal product. So that's why we also manage to maintain the quality on the Reserve line as well. So talking about aging the Great Reserves, well, I'm going to show you a bottle that I, not now, but probably will open on the 40 years. And that's the one who I have right here. Well, this is a 2006 Great Reserve Shiraz. So for how many times are you able to have a Great Reserve in your cellar, in your house, in the bottle? Well, you're able to have it up to 15 years on the barrel, on the bottle, I'm sorry, on the bottle. So if you want to keep a wine, if you want to have a wine that it's able to be aged on the barrel, Great Reserve is a line for you. So these ones are able to be kept on the bottle for up to 15 years, and every single year will pay off the time, and you will enjoy different structure, different characteristics, more aromas, more elegant bouquet. For example, if you have an aroma of red fruit, you will find spiced red fruit during the years, and more smoked wood or higher intensity of toast wood on the barrel of this aroma. So these wines through the years get more and more complex and complex. Right now, these are elegant and refined wines, but through the years, these wines are gonna get more stronger and more powerful, but not aggressive. Always maintaining a line of the grape variety. I don't know if you have questions. Yes, you can save your Great Reserve bottle for a few years. That's an awesome thing to do. I mean, it's always awesome to enjoy them. As I said, another thing that you can do is to purchase not just one bottle, to purchase a case or half a case, and then opening one bottle each year, and then you can see the evolution of wine. And it's not a sales strategy, I'm honest. It's a wine recommendation itself in order for you to be able to enjoy the processing of aging the wine into the bottle. Okay, so I don't want to take you to take more of your time because we have reached the hour specified for this tasting. I don't know if you have more questions or you want to keep on talking about something. We can stay. I don't have a problem to stay a little bit longer on this chat.
Hey,
I hope you have enjoyed the wines.
we have a question.
Some comments. Yes,
There's a question on the chat.
please. Oh, there's a question on the chat. Let me see it. This was fun.
Lori.
I live in Saltillo part-time. Why is Madero more expensive at 𝗏𝗶𝗃 in Saltillo? That's a great question. Why is it expensive in Saltillo than is in 𝗏𝗶𝗃 in the US? Well, I will say it's taxes, to be honest. I think the taxes for alcohol beverages in the US are a little bit lower than in Mexico. In Mexico, we have a 16% and then an additional 25.5. So we have 41% of taxes.
That explains it.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's a little bit expensive to drink wine in Mexico. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So if you're living part-time in Austin, you can actually get it cheaper. And actually, Alejandra and I, we get it a lot. No, tequila is way higher. You don't want to know how much taxes are being paid on tequila. I don't even want to say it. So yeah, Alejandra and I have experienced that news that sometimes people we know, they send us the pricing in the US and ourselves want to go there and buy some wine.
Okay.
Diego, this is Sabino Renteria. I'm also the city council member that represent V3 here on the city council. And on behalf of the mayor, I really want to say thank you for this presentation. It was very great, and I just really enjoyed the heck out of it. And I love that area. I visit that the winery for 2 times now since I've been down there. And I just love the tour there. So, you know, and now that you explained to me about the process and the history, I really appreciate that. And thank you for everything you have done. And let's keep up the relationship of, you know, being brothers and sisters with whatever.
Thank you very much.
Whatever that crazy guy does at White House, we're still friends and we still work together. And we appreciate everything that you do and bring over here. And please, I live in a district where people love their wine. So,
awesome. We should definitely, Alejandra, Daniel Milmo, and I should be there soon, visiting you and giving you a physical wine tasting and a tour through the city.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. We're gonna have a scouting over there.
And you have great restaurants there too. So.
Yeah, I know. I know. No, thank you very much to all of you. It really means a lot, giving us the time and the opportunity to be talking about our wines here with you, to sharing. Thank you very much for your preference in enjoying this experience of wines. Now you know a little bit more about our passion, which is winemaking in Mexico, and it's really interesting. We are really committed to quality and continuous learning to perfecting the wines each and every year and receiving more medals. I will ask Alejandra to please tell us how many medals do we have right now at this moment.
We have 937 medals today.
Wow.
Yes, I wanted to wait for that and to let Alejandra say that. Above 900 medals around the world for Mexican wine. So we are actually producing really high quality wines and are really committed to you and your preference. Thank you very much for the time. It's really a pleasure for us being here, and we are willing and desire to repeat this very soon.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say, I mean, we have to say Viva Mexico as well, you know, for Independence Day. Cheers to all of you.
Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
Viva Mexico.
Viva!
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 Well, I just wanted to say, for those of you that are new to our organization, Austin Saltillo Sister Cities, the why. Why do we celebrate the relationship between Austin and Saltillo? Remember that Texas used to be part of Mexico, and Coahuila y Texas used to be one state. And Saltillo used to be the capital of Coahuila y Texas. So that's a little bit of history for you. Thank you very much, Sommelier Diego Hernandez and Casa Madero, for hosting this wonderful wine tasting. Thank you very much also to the Austin Wine Merchants and 𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍 for sourcing the wines. This now concludes our wine tasting event for the 4th annual Saltillo Day in Austin. We will now play a very short video of Casa Madero, but I please encourage you to check back often on austinsaltillo.com, because we will have yearly celebrations of this wonderful relationship that we have between Austin and Saltillo. Thank you very much. Gracias y buenas noches. Salud.
Salud, gracias, buenas noches.
And please.
A special message throughout this video: we are now reopened for tourism, and we will be pleased to receive you back into the winery again through Austin Sister Cities International. That will be our best way to connect, to receive you in a few weeks or months into the winery.